There we go. What's going on, people? Jack Mitchell. I aspire to be Jack Mitchell when I grow up or grow younger. I think that's my it might be grow younger at this point. You guys hear me okay? It's all good? Awesome. Love it. Love it. All right. People coming on. Let's give it 1 minute and we'll go. Illinois, Wood River. Don't know it. Lebanon, Oregon. Love it. Where else are you folks from? I know Diana's from Mexico now. Ohio. I think I've heard of Ohio. Yeah, I know Florida. I know all these places, but I would not be the one you'd want to ask me to find them on a map. That would not be my specialty. Although Florida I could find. How is everybody doing? Awesome. We are recording. This is a part of our Wednesday evening, slightly extended trainings that we're going to be doing, along with the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday addition to the Monday huddle call. I'm really glad that you're here. My name is Mitch Newman. For those of you who don't know me, put a 1 in the comments if you don't know who I am or I don't even look familiar to you. Sometimes I don't recognize myself. Okay. All right. Scott Johnson doesn't know who I am. Okay. All right. Nick doesn't know either. Okay. Okay. All right, Nick. Okay. That's fine. Well, welcome everybody. I appreciate everybody investing time and energy in themselves this evening and allowing me to guide you a little bit along this concept that I reference as the inside game. You may also hear it as people talk about it as the inner game. Doesn't matter. It just means that it's inside. It's coming from within. And I just want to give you a little kind of a brief history of how this came to be, for me, at least in terms of my focus. I have been, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mitch Newman. I live in the desert outside of Los Angeles, near Palm Springs. Been in LA for 35, 36 years. My wife and I and the kids moved out to the desert a couple years ago. And really just kind of focusing on a lot of writing and a lot of energy around a podcast that I have, which is called, lo and behold, The Inside Game with Mitch Newman. Do you believe it? Like, holy cow. It's actually called The Inside Game. And then I'm doing this thing. It's about the inside game. Coincidence? I don't know. But I started doing, I've been with Prove It for 8 years in July. I mean, it doesn't, I don't know. I think Rutherford was here before me. Dusty was here before me. But I've been here since the beginning. And my background is as a coach. I have a master's in spiritual psychology, which is the study and practice of conscious awareness. And I've worked with individuals, couples, executives, entrepreneurs for over 2 decades now. And one of the things I got really excited about when I first got into Prove It was this whole idea of a leadership training, and got very heavily involved with our CEO, Brian Underwood, and a bunch of other folks. And we developed this whole leadership thing. And then I said, I'm going to do a conscious leadership podcast. And I started to do that. I did about 73 episodes. And all of a sudden I was meditating one day and I just heard stop. It was a stop. It was a hard stop. And I said, you know what? I'm stopping the podcast. And I started to realize that in order for us to get to a place of leadership or thinking of ourselves, potentially even thinking of ourselves as leader, because leadership has so many definitions and so many people utilize it in so many different ways. And sometimes it's heartfelt, and sometimes it's ego driven, and sometimes it just has a lot of different things to it. And a lot of times people think, oh, I'm not a leader. I could never be a leader. And so I realized, okay, so let me back off a little bit. I took about 8-9 months off the podcast. And I thought about it. I said, well, what do I know after over 2 decades of coaching? What do I know is a through line, whether I'm talking to somebody that's a promoter and prove it, whether I'm talking to a couple, whether I'm talking to a corporate executive, an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter who. What do I know is a consistent through line that helps me to understand what people are able to ultimately define really as success as they define success. And what was the through line of the things that got in people's way? Because I always look at it as, well, a lot of times people go through life and they get kind of sporadic results. They try different things. They get a little bit of result here and then not so much, or they get all or nothing results. Like it's either feast or famine. Can any of you relate to that? Put a 1 in the comments if you can relate to what I'm talking about. And what I realized, and something that a phrase that I had coined many years ago, which is, I call it SLR, sustainable lifetime results. We all want sustainable lifetime results. We all want to feel a sense of success as we define success throughout our lives, not just because we're doing something in business and it's going really well, or it's, we're doing something and we're getting, maybe we're not getting any results in it, but we really want the sustainability factor. It's so important to each and every one of us. So I started to think, okay, so what is it that separates people from having sustainable lifetime results? Because we're all capable of it, but we're all not achieving it. And so a lot of times when people would contact me, whether it was a coach or whether it was in Prove It, and people say, hey, I'm going through this, they would contact me and they'd go through a list of all the things that weren't working. I can't get anybody to call anybody. I can't get anybody to run a Zoom. I can't get anybody to do anything. I feel like it's all on me. I can't get anybody that wants to be a promoter. I can't get anybody that wants to stay on as a customer. I can't. And they start running, they're really, what they're doing is they're case building. And they're coming to me and they're basically subtext. The text is what I'm hearing. The subtext is what I'm listening for, which is what they really mean by what they're saying is, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not capable. I really can't pull this off. That's what people are, in essence, are saying. And so I had been experimenting, and I realized over the years that whenever somebody does that and they call me and they're running what I call some form of I'm upset because, and then they fill in the blank, and it's usually a list. They're building a case and they want me to go, yeah, I guess, yeah, that sucks. It does. But I always ask the people, I said, listen, let me ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it sucks and 10 being it's amazing, where would you be at if you were going to rate yourself around self-care, around sacred self-care? And I just had somebody the other day, and I posed that question to them, and they said what 99% of the people say when they call me and they're running some form of omniperceptive question. They said a 3. Scale of 1 to 10 is a 3. Sometimes people say it's a 4. I think they're saying 4 because they're too embarrassed to say 3, but that's a whole nother Zoom. But the reality is it's low. And so usually what I found was consistently throughout 2 decades of coaching, when people are running some form of I'm upset because, or they think they can't do something or not achieving what they want to achieve, in essence, what they're not doing is they have no self-care, or it's very, very low. And I list self-care on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's very low. And so I say, so there's a through line there. And so what I found is that people tend to, and we're all kind of guilty of this, and a lot of companies are guilty of this, and sometimes Prove It has been, from my perspective, guilty of this, is we kind of treat the inside game, or let's say self-care, as something that happens over here. So business is over here, and then self-care is over here. So we're going to do a business seminar, and we're going to do a business huddle up. And then in a month or 2, we're going to do a personal development retreat. And when I hear that, I'm not triggered by it. I'll talk about triggers in a second, but it makes no sense to me, because your inside game and your outside game work together. There is no, if we want to create sustainable lifetime results, then we have to understand that our inside game and our outside game are partners in this, are partners in this. And I can only say that because of my own experience with it and kind of mastering my own inside game and constantly challenging myself to take it to the next level. But the question that I asked all these people for 2 decades, it's not lying to me. It's telling me a deep truth. And so we tend to teach it as it's something that happens over here. Well, I don't know about you, but sometimes during the course of my day, and I want you to put a 1 in the comments, do you ever get like a phone call that's like incredibly distressing? Do you ever get somebody who, you know, all of a sudden you thought was going to be a big deal in your team decides they don't want to be in your team at all? Somebody thought you were going to enroll, decides not to enroll? Or you get into an argument with a friend, a family member, a spouse, a kid, your dog. Maybe not your dog. It's hard to get in a fight with your dog. But I came close today. Different Zoom, sorry. But here's the deal. Stuff happens to us throughout the day. None of us are immune from stuff. We all have stuff. We're all dealing with stuff. And so what throws us can be that phone call, can be that Zoom that nobody shows up to, can be that keto life party that 3 people arrive and don't stay the whole time. And what do? We go into self-doubt. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I'm not talented enough. Maybe I'm just not enough. And we get thrown by it. It happens. It happens. Honestly, it happens to all of us. It happens to me. That's why I work on my inside game, and it's part of my day. It just goes throughout my day. So what happens is when that phone call comes in or that something happens and it throws you off, I call that a trigger. And a trigger, from my perspective, is anything that upsets your peace. Anything that upsets your peace. It could be anywhere from, God, that didn't really feel good, to, I don't believe it, and everywhere in between. That's a trigger. So you're thrown. You're off your game. So the goal, from my perspective, is not to get people to a place where they're never triggered. And I had a client one time say to me years ago, "You mean you get triggered?" I'm like, dude, I've got 2 daughters, 3 dogs, a business. I'm married. We all get triggered. They go, "Oh, God, I'm surprised that you get triggered." No, I'm triggered on a daily basis. My peace gets upset at certain points during the day on a daily basis. I'm good with it. Why? Because I have an inside game that I go to in those moments when that happens. And so the goal is not to get people to a place where they're never triggered or they're never upset by anything before. Like, that's just not going to happen. Earth School, your human experience, that's where your work is where you get triggered. That's how you know where your work is where you get triggered, is where you get upset. The goal, from my perspective, and what I want to share with you today that you really want to hammer home, is your goal is to not about eliminate triggers in your life, but to find that you are triggered less often. And when you are, it's for a shorter period of time. So I've had clients over the years, it's, they get in a fight, they exchange words, and then they don't talk for 3 days. Then all of a sudden they just kind of come back together, something brings them together, and it's like it blows over, only to be continued, right? So if we could take 3 days and make it 2 days, that's a win. If we can take 2 days and make it 1 day, that's a bigger win. If we can make it 15 minutes, really big win. 2 minutes, unbelievable. So how do we do that? How do we do that? Well, if we don't have an inside game, if we don't have tools, I call it my inner Home Depot. If we don't all have our own inner Home Depot of tools that we can pull out from time to time, then what happens is that we become products of our environment, and our environment and our external world constantly tell us whether or not we're worthy or not, whether we're good or not, whether we're not lovable or not, whether we can build a business or not. We're just waiting for the outside world to confirm, in many situations, what it is that a lot of us fear the most is, maybe I just can't do this. Maybe this just isn't for me. So it's very important to understand that in order to have an outside game, and this is where it happens a lot of times, people develop an inside game. They go, yeah, I've been doing this. I've been doing this. I've been doing this. My business took off. And then what do? Now that it took off? Oh, thank you, inside game. Take care. And they just focus externally. And maybe business goes good for a while. Maybe the relationship's going well for a while. And then all of a sudden something happens. They get triggered. Something falls down. Something falls apart. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe this isn't for me. And then they call me. And then I say to them, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it sucks, 10 being it's amazing, where are you on your inside game? Well, I was really doing my inside game. And then I don't know, I stopped. Yeah, because you started to believe externally in the world that you were as wonderful temporarily as the world was reflecting back to you. And then when all of a sudden the world wasn't reflecting that back to you, you realized that you didn't have that support. So I'm going to talk about all this. So I appreciate all your comments. I'm going to kind of get into all that. So the goal is moving away from sporadic results. The goal is moving away from all or nothing results to living our life in extremes. The goal is moving away from 0 results. And the goal and the intention is to get to sustainable lifetime results. Now, does that mean that your business or your relationship is always going amazing? Not necessarily. Your inside game supports you in weathering through seasons that are going to exist in your business, that are going to exist in your life. That's what it is. That's part of it. That's part of the process. So the inside game works with the outside game. And it's kind of so sometimes people talk about, well, I get up in the morning and you'd be really proud of me. I meditated for 90 minutes and then I did a cold plunge. And then I wrote down things that I was grateful for. And then I went about my day. And I'm like, okay, it's a great morning. But what happens at 3 o'clock when that phone call comes in that things don't go so well? It's amazing how quickly we can forget about the cold plunge and the gratitude work and the meditation when later in the day that happens. So what I like to teach and what I find to be most effective is understanding that your business, your external world, the things that you're actually doing, the action you're taking, and what's happening internally is happening all the time throughout the day. So it's kind of what I call a conscious flow loop. It's kind of like you're in your inside game, then goes to your outside game, then back to your inside game, back to your outside game. It's kind of moving back and forth throughout the day. And you're pulling out tools as you need them. It's not something you get out of the way when you first get up. Your inside game is the way. So it's really, really important that we look at it. So I talked about this from a standpoint of the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. Things that people need to be doing on all 4 of those levels. And I kind of look at it as like a wheel. Imagine a wheel. And in the center, you may want to write this down on a piece of paper. This may be helpful for you to see it, right? Just take a piece of paper and then draw a small circle in the middle and then write me inside it. And then draw a much bigger circle on the outside of it and then extend 4 spokes from the outer edge of the inside circle to the inner edge of the outside circle. And you can label 1 as physical, 1 is mental, 1 is emotional, and 1 is spiritual. So this is what I teach. And I teach this because I believe that when all 4 of those spokes are engaged throughout your day, you're going to see SLR. You're going to see sustainable lifetime results. You're going to be able to weather challenges that exist in your life because you're actively engaging all those spokes. Do you ever not feel well physically and all of a sudden you start entertaining thoughts and emotions that aren't necessarily favorable? One spoke starts to slow down or break or bend. You're not feeling well physically. And then all of a sudden it overcompensates on the other spokes. And now that wheel isn't turning as effectively. So it's the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Each one gets their own spoke. So what I like to do is I like to utilize something that I'm doing on a daily basis with each of those spokes and doing it different points throughout the day. So physical could be I'm just, drinking more water. It could be I'm physically moving my body. There's movement involved, right? The mental could be something that I'm choosing to read or something that I'm filtering through my brain. The emotional could be, for a lot of people, they're not necessarily in touch with their emotions throughout the day. They're not necessarily sure what they're feeling throughout the day. So are they doing something that taps into the different feelings that come up during the course of a day? And then the spiritual, not to be confused with religious, because they are not the same thing. They're not opposed to each other. But from a religious standpoint, that's more something that's a kind of a group dynamic, right? Spiritual is more of I would list them as the 3 P's. We'll call them peace, purpose, and presence, right? It's an individual practice that you put into play that allows you to have more peace, more purpose, and more presence in your day. So the goal is to be able to activate them. Now, how do we activate them? What are some of the things that people do? Sometimes people really enjoy journaling. Sometimes people hate writing. Sometimes I talk about doing gratitude work. What is gratitude work? Well, you write down 5 things that you're grateful for every day. Or you just stop and at one point during the day and you write down 5 things that you're grateful for that are on their way that haven't yet arrived yet, but you know they come in. Or you sit down and write down 5 things that happened to you in your life that when it happened, you weren't very grateful, but in hindsight, you realize how necessary it was, and now you have gratitude towards it. I challenge, and I learned this through my kids because, kids are tricky and sometimes sneaky. So we used to have the kids present us, my wife and I, a gratitude list every morning. My daughter would hand it to me and I go, oh, this is great. Food, shelter, water, money, whatever they want. Okay, good. And then the next morning I get the list and I was like, oh, that kind of looks eerily the same. Then I realized what they were doing is they were just taking the list, literally the list, and just putting it in their drawer. And then in the morning they'd hand me the same list every time. So I put a stop to that. You can only get over on me maybe twice or 3 days before I catch on. I'm pretty fast. But what it was so perfect about that was I go, you know what? Here's what we're going to do, kids. I want you to write down 3 things that you're grateful for every day, and you can't repeat. Has to be something new. How often do we forget things that we're grateful for? And we just go, oh, yeah, I'm really grateful for my family. I'm really grateful for them. This kind of same list. But all of a sudden we go, you know what? I'm really grateful for my breath. Like, wow. Or all of a sudden I look up at the sky. I go, wow. Like, I'm just so grateful that I can see this blue sky or the trees and the leaves blowing. Like, there's so many things to be grateful for. I also am a big fan of meditation, but a lot of times people go, oh, I can't meditate. I don't have 2 hours. I don't have an hour to meditate. I didn't ask you for an hour. Meditate for a minute. Focus on something. Close your eyelids. Focus on something for a minute. It's a meditation. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you what is or what isn't. There's no meditation league. You don't get graded, right? The goal is mindfulness, being more in your heart. For those of you who've never done breath work, Amazing. Well, you can do breath work. You can do really extensive breath work where you can sit down and take 20 minutes and do breath work. Some people take longer. You can also take 30 seconds. So I'm not invested in how much time you put in choosing these things. You maybe some of you like your innate statements that you've done. Maybe you like affirmations. I'm not here to argue with any of them, and they're all valid and they all work if they work for you. But the question becomes is how to incorporate them not only in your day but throughout your day. That's the key here. Because you can't, I'm just telling you, having done this work for as long as I've done this work, I was elevated to legend in this business. I don't know how. I mean, I sort of know how. But when I first joined Prove It, and I looked in the back office and I looked at the numbers and stuff like that. Well, what is that legend? What is that? What kind of numbers? There were so many zeros. I was just like overwhelmed. And I just turned it off and I said, you know what? I'm a legend. And all I did was from part of my own inside game, as I just identified myself and to my family as a legend. And my daughter used to say, Daddy, what rank are you again? I said, I'm a legend. She kind of like looking at me, like eyebrows going up. Like she's kind of like, I think Mike Rutherford's a legend, but I don't know that my dad is. I go, no, I'm a legend. And all I did was I carried the energy of what that felt like to me to be a legend. That's all I did. So it wasn't something that I disputed, but it was something that I got inside my head and I got inside my heart. And I carried the energy and the frequency of that's what I am. And then when I got elevated to it, and people would go, oh, wow, congratulations. And I would say, thank you for elevating me to that. I really appreciate that. And, you know, what are you going to do to celebrate? And it was like a weird question for me because of my inside game. For years, I was a legend. So it didn't really feel like all of a sudden now I needed to celebrate. And I share this story often, but like my celebration was my daughter, we ordered in Chipotle and my burrito said legend on it, you know, instead of my name, it said legend. That was exciting to me. And I had a donut. I love donuts. But people thought I was nuts because I go, thanks, you know, appreciate it. Yeah, okay, thanks. They thought, what are you going to do to celebrate? Like, well, I've kind of been a legend for years now, but okay. So my whole point in all this is that we all have the opportunity to create a level of success and prove it as we define success. Whether we see ourselves as a legend or not, that's totally up to you. But what I have found consistently throughout is when we just focus on going and doing, and I've coached many people in Prove It. I coached somebody one time and they said, oh, you know, I think I'm just going to feel what I need to feel once I hit a certain rank. Well, you don't want to say that to me because that's the wrong thing to say, but I went along with it. I said, oh, okay. And they went and what did they do? They went and they just buried themselves in their Prove It business. Focus, hours and hours and hours and hours and exhausted. And, you know, and they would say things like, I haven't showered in 5 days. I've been just working so hard on my Prove It, you know, all these things and whatever. And then they hit that rank. And I called them up to congratulate them. And I said, how do you feel? And they go, well, it felt really good, you know, when people were calling and then Prove It posted everything and said, oh, congratulations. And I got a text message from Brian. It was really cool. And then, you know, 10, 15 minutes went by and like my daughter's like, I'm hungry. And, you know, like my life, you know, I didn't feel any different. I said, okay. And I was about to follow up. Now, do you get my point? And she said, you know, I think when I hit the next rank, that's when it'll kick in. I was like, oh. And then she went and did that. She hit the next rank and then she disappeared, left Prove It. So we can focus on external stuff. And I'm not saying you shouldn't set goals for yourself and you shouldn't take action in the world. You got to take action in the world. You can't have an inside game and then not take action. The goal of your inside game, it's like, imagine it's like a pit stop during your day. An Indy car goes around the track and it has to pull over. It's going to need new tires. It's going to need windshields so it can see where it's going. It's going to need some hydration. That's how I've always treated my business. I need to pull over. It's a long race. I need to nourish myself. I need to take care of myself. I need to check in. So how do we do that? Because a lot of times people go, yeah, I decided I'm going to meditate X number of times a week. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I go, great. And they go, and I go, well, how are you going to do it? Like, when are you going to do it? They're like, well, I've got to figure that part out. And guess what happens? They never do it, or they do it sporadically. Now they're doing the same things, getting sporadic results, doing things sporadically. So I don't let people get away with that. I say, listen, pull out your phone. They're like, what? I said, yeah, pull out your phone. You're going to set appointments. It's also a clue if you want to pull out your phone. You're going to set appointments with yourself at different points during the day. Just like you would if you have a scheduled call with somebody. No, you're going to set an appointment with yourself. And you're going to pick something that you're going to do on those levels that you're going to be able to do. And I don't, like I said, I'd rather you not say, I can't meditate. I don't know how to quiet my mind. I don't know how, it's not for me. I'd rather you just say, I'm going to meditate a minimum of 3 times a week on these days at this time. I'm setting an appointment for myself to be able to do it. And I'm just going to take 5 minutes. I don't care. 5 minutes, take 3 minutes, take 2 minutes, take 30 seconds. But what I really want you to do is you have to find the placeholders in the day, because listen, we all have pretty full lives. Even if you know, we don't, we just have a lot of stuff going on. And if we don't make appointments with ourselves, if we don't check in with ourselves, if we don't, I have one that says, are you breathing right now? That pops up. Why? Because you know what? You get caught up in fight or flight. They starts winning a little bit, gets ahead of you, and you know, you're scrambling and everything's going on and whatever. And all of a sudden it pops up. Are you breathing right now? And I go, oh, wow. Right. I'm breathing from here up. I'm like shallow breathing. Why? Because I'm in anxious mode. I'm in fight or flight mode. I'm being chased by a dinosaur mode. And all of a sudden it makes, oh, okay. Let me just take a minute and take some deep breaths. And all of these things that you can do during the course of a day, what it does is it brings you back to the present moment. It brings you right back to the present moment. That's the goal, is to get back to the present moment. Because when you're freaking out about something that didn't happen, when you're freaking out about something that didn't work out, you're not in the present moment. You're not even in the future. You're in the past. This is exactly what happened to me in my last company. Same thing. This is what's happened to me my whole life. You're literally recreating the past in the present moment. And what I want you to start thinking about is, the past is the past. Grab the wisdom that you can. Focus on being as present as you can in each moment. Because here's what happens. In each moment that passes, that's the future. Think about that. We're now in the future from when this call started. So that has to be the focus. So you want to put things into your phone. Now that may be breath. That may be prayer. That may be meditation. That may be, I'm going to pull out a gratitude journal. That maybe I'm just going to pull out a journal. That maybe I'm going to go take a walk. When you start to hit on these different things and you're consistent with it, you're going to be more at peace. All of this is about restoring energy and emotion in a higher frequency to your body so you can keep moving forward. Now, I just don't do inside game stuff. I do inside game staff because I understand that it's partner, it's co-creating with my external game, my outside game. So I take a level of action internally, and then I take external action. And then I get feedback from my day. Is this in alignment? Is this working? Is this moving towards the goals that I want to? I'm feeling a little bit down. You know what? I'm going to sit down and just do a little bit of writing. So I have phone reminders and appointments with myself during the day. But guess what? My phone and the reminder at 3:00 to ask myself if I'm breathing doesn't mean that I don't get a phone call at 2:00 or 2:30 or 1:00 that isn't necessarily favorable. I got a phone call in Lowe's on Friday that wasn't necessarily the most exciting phone call that one would wish for. And it stunned me and it stopped me. And what did I do with it? Focused on my breath. I focused on what I have to be grateful for. It pulled me back into the present moment. And it allowed me to keep moving and keep moving forward, because that's the goal. Plenty of stuff that exists and it's going to happen to us in our lives. That's going to happen in and around us are there to derail us, to slow us down, to distract us, to give us pause, to give us reason, to feed some old belief that we have about ourselves. And that will win unless you fortify what needs to be fortified by having an inside game that works for your outside game. And when I say co-creation, I say partnership, I couldn't be more serious. They require each other. Because if you just go take external action, you may have times where everything's going wonderfully. And I meet plenty of people like, oh yeah, things are going great. Business has never been better. And at some point, business slows down. At some point, something may happen that causes them to be thrown off their game. And they have no fallback position and they fall apart. And that's what the all or nothing results is. Living your life in extremes. It's exhausting. And my only request when I talk to people about this and I train people on this is to take just the time that's necessary to pull over, take a break, catch your breath, get back into the present moment, do something that will pull you back into that moment, and then take action again, and then go back to it again. And this could happen 10, 15 times throughout the day where you're back and forth, sometimes longer, sometimes more. It's different for everybody, depending upon what's going on in your day. But this is really all about how do I restore energy back into my body and elevate my emotion and hold that strong intention to be able to go create what it is that I want to create. To be able to manifest what it is that I know that I'm capable of. And that's why I make a big deal, and I'm imposing on everybody else to also make a big deal when we do these calls on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, that we're also talking about the inside game. If you say, oh, this is a call on how to attract people. And I've seen this time and time again. I've been here 8 years and I've been doing this work for over 20. I'm just telling you right now. I know what happens. People go to an event, people get on a call, they get on a Zoom, and somebody says, oh, you just need to do this, this, and this. And your logical brain, your prefrontal cortex goes, yes, I just need to make more phone calls. Huh. Wow. Then you go home, get off the Zoom, do whatever, and you go to lift up the phone to make more phone calls, and you freeze. Or you go to do something that seems so simple when you were told, oh, you just do this, you just make this post, and you can't post. And all of a sudden you feel paralyzed to move forward to make a post. And then I know how the brain works, because I know my brain's no different than yours. Then all of a sudden the brain starts to spiral. Something must be wrong with me. I must not be that smart. Like, I must be like the dumbest person. Like, everybody on here is like crushing it. and I'm like just losing this big time. And what happens is so much shame builds up inside of people that they don't then reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm kind of stuck here, because they're too embarrassed that they can't pick up the phone and call somebody. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do that. So we have to develop calls that cater to the very brand new person and everybody in between. Because there are times where I go to do something that seems pretty simple and pretty obvious, and I get stuck. And I have to pull out a tool, and I have to remember who I am and remind myself that I'm capable of this. I need to walk by a mirror and look at myself in the mirror and go, oh my God, it's Mitch Newman, and lift my energy up and then go pick up the phone and call somebody. But what ends up happening in a lot of these situations is people are filled with so much shame that they don't not just pick up the phone and call anybody, they disappear. They go into the Prove It protection program, never to be heard from again. I want to quietly, because we never know completely what's what, but I want to quietly reduce attrition. I want to reduce the number of people that are on this call from walking away. Now, I know stuff comes up for people. People are faced with health challenges. People are faced with family dynamics that all of a sudden shift. I get it. Not everybody can make it work necessarily. They make other choices. That's okay. But I want to impact attrition because I want to show reverence and respect for each and every one of you that, you know what? From time to time, you're going to slip. From time to time, you're going to doubt yourself. From time to time, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to get scared. You're going to become uncertain. And I only know that's going to happen to you because it happens to me. And I've been doing this work, teaching this work for over 20 years. So I want you to understand that it's okay. When somebody says, oh, all you have to do is compliment somebody on their shoes, some people go, okay, yeah, I can do that. I love to compliment people on their shoes. And then somebody else goes, oh shit, like I'm really bad at giving compliments. Does this mean I can't do this business? So I want all of us, and I want you to call us on it when you see it not happening, to understand that we're all the same, man. Like the amount of money I've made and the rank that I have, I am no different than any one of you. I may have a bigger toolbox. I may be more consistent usually using that toolbox, but I'm no different. When my head hits the pillow at night, my shit comes up. But I truly believe with every ounce of my being, and I stopped the podcast and I've done 30, the next episode of my podcast drops tomorrow morning. I've done 34 episodes of my new podcast, The Inside Game with Mitch Newman. It's on Apple. It's on everywhere. You can find it anywhere. You can go watch it on my YouTube of the same name. It's free. Just go listen to it. Just go understand. Like, I am so thoroughly invested in this within this team and within what I believe creates the sustainable lifetime results. I got a text message today, and I know somebody else that's probably listening and on the replay got a text message today from somebody who joined Prove It, and we work with them, we invested in them. Really kind person, really super kind person. And they were dealing with a parent who basically would say, that's so stupid. I can't believe you did that. You're going to lose money. You're going to all these negative things. And it impacted her. But we never gave up on her. We never, ever gave up on her. She was no longer involved in Prove It. I still checked in with her. I still texted her. And so did this other person. We still checked it. She texted both of us today saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because of what I've learned from you and the things that I learned in Prove It on the personal development side, I just got into an MBA program. That's a win, folks. That's a win. That's her inside game stepping up and her winning. And I'm just as thrilled for her that she got into an MBA program as if she would have elevated herself and proved it. Care about her. We care about each other here. We want each other to win. We want to lift each other up. And some people I have a friend who makes fistfuls of dollars. Like, he can't understand. He goes, Mitch, I swear, I don't know what's wrong with me. I go, what? He goes, I don't understand how people can't make money. I've always made millions of dollars. I just don't I don't understand how people have money issues. I just don't get it. And I said, well, do you have other issues? Do you have other challenges? Oh, yeah. I go, well, some of those people have those too. Like, none of us escape stuff. And how you do prove it is how you do everything else. It's gonna reflect that back to you. How you do prove it is how you do everything else. So people can avoid the inside game. They can, and that's fine. That means that they're not ready for it. Or they find something else that resembles an inside game. Great, fantastic. I'm just telling you, with every ounce of my being, with everything that I've learned, everything I've personally experienced, the success as I've defined success in my life and within Prove It, as I've defined it, is attributed to the fact that my inside game, my outside game do not go out without each other in the course of a day. They do not travel solo. They are a partnership. They co-create together. They keep me on track. So my goal for each and every one of you is to find those placeholders during the course of a day. Stuff that you put into your phone that are absolutes, man. You are not missing it. Just like you wouldn't miss the 1 o'clock phone call or the 5 o'clock Zoom that we did tonight. And have other things that you put into place throughout the day. Find a guided meditation. Find something that's 5 minutes long, 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long. Build up to whatever you feel most comfortable when you're ready to do that. I don't, like, people go, I don't have an hour. I go, I don't want you to have an hour. I don't often have an hour to do that. But I have enough meditations and access to enough meditations that if I want to meditate for 5 minutes or 90 minutes or anywhere in between, I've got them. And if I want to breathe and do some deep breath work for 1 minute, I do it for 1 minute. And if I want to do it for 20 minutes, I do it for 20 minutes, depending upon where my day is. But you know what? I don't front load my day with everything and say, oh, I got that out of the way. I do my personal development in the morning. God bless you if you do, but I'm just telling you, stuff is going to happen throughout the day that's going to throw you off your game. What pulls you back to the present moment? Your inside game. Appreciate each and every one of you. Genuinely appreciate each and every one of you for investing time into yourself, into your teams, to spend time with me. I hope something, and I'm not attached to it being everything. I hope we walk away with one thing, because here's the deal. These calls, this call, the one that we had today, the one that we're going to have tomorrow, you can write all day long. And I told this to Rutherford today. I said, you know, people can write to me all day long and say, oh, Mitch, Mitch, that call was fire. That call was amazing. That was so great. I don't need attaboys. I don't need pats on the back. I don't need acknowledgement. I swear I don't. Promise you I don't. The greatest joy that I would have is that any one of you would text me and tell me, you know, I had this situation come up and here's the tool I used and it got me back into the present moment. And I'm feeling good. If you don't take what we teach, if you don't take what we're saying, if it doesn't, you know, first it's got to resonate. It's got to speak to your heart. But if you don't take what's happening in these calls and put it into play, it's just a call. It's just a call. And what I really give a shit about is that you create sustainable lifetime results and success as you define success in your life, regardless of whether you're in Prove It or out of Prove It. Whether you're going for your MBA, whether you send me a picture that your 8-year-old daughter is meditating and you moved on to another company, I'm thrilled for you. I'm thrilled for your daughter. I promise. I am. I love you guys. Thanks so much. Blessings to you all.